So here we're going to look at crystal zones. In some of the other videos, we've looked at Miller indices. And so we'll contrast zones with these. With Miller indices, by definition, we use rounded brackets. So we can have something like the 010. And if we had that, then if we imagine three axes, A, B, and C, then the Miller indices would be a way of defining a face. And in this case, the 010 would be a face that hits the B-axis but is parallel to A and C. So it would be something like this. That would be the 010 face. And then you might imagine that we have something like a 001 face. And that would be a face that would intercept the C-axis up here and would be parallel to A and B. So that would be the index for this face here. But what if we saw something like an 001, but instead of rounded brackets, we had square brackets? What would that mean? Well, this is not a face. It indicates a so-called zone. That's the technical term, and it indicates a direction, not a plane, but a line. And that direction, these kinds of directions are used to define the position of the A, B, and C axes. Let's go ahead and clear the chalkboard and start again with something that has A, B, and C axes. And let's draw a box, not necessarily a cube, but a box where each of the sides have some different length. So there's our box. And these are the sides and back. So we can have this face over here and then this face over here, and then at their intersection defines a line, and that line could be used to represent the C-axis. So here is their intersection, not a very straight line on my part, but that intersection there can be used to decide where the C-axis would lie. And that might be, for example, be notated as the 001. And then we can have the intersection of this face and this face define this horizontal direction here. And it could be the B-axis, and we might notate that as 010, again writing it in square brackets to represent a direction, not a plane. And then similarly, we could have this face up here on top, and then this face over here on the side, that their intersection could be the way that we would define the A-axis. And we might write that as 100 in square brackets. So anytime we have two faces that intersect, things like A, B, and C can be defined based on those face intercepts. So let's take a look at how we might define a zone if we know two faces, if we know their Miller indices. So let's say we have, let's go back to the box. So let's say we have a box. And we have this face here, we'll call it the 010, so Miller indices require round brackets. And then it's going to intersect with this face over here, and that is the 100, again with rounded brackets. How would we go about finding the zone indices for this direction here? Well, there's a little trick, and the way it would work would be like this. We would take the Miller indices of one of the faces, let's say the 100, and we would write it, and then we'd write it again. So 100, and then 100. We just write them next to each other. So then that takes care of this face. Let's do the same thing with this face underneath. So the 010, and then the 010. And what we're going to do is we're going to ignore those leftmost and rightmost columns. So we'll just get rid of those and focus on what is in here in the square brackets. And now we're going to play a little mathematical game where we'll take this product and subtract it from the product of these numbers. So 0 times 0 is 0, and then 0 times 1 is also 0, so we get 0 minus 0 for our first entry. Then we'll do the same over here. 0 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is also 0, 0 minus 0. Kind of boring so far. But then take a look at this last one, gets a little more interesting. 1 times 1 is 1. And then 0 times 0 is 0, so we get 1 minus 0. So we're left with the numbers 0, 0, and 1 when we take those differences, and we can put them into square brackets. So we get the zone index or zone indices 0, 0, 1. So that would be the zone index that would indicate this direction here, which in this case could be, for example, the c-axis. So when you see these square brackets, these are indicating a crystallographic direction. They're used very frequently when we're interested in some particular pathway or some particular direction within a crystal. We'll talk about a zone rather than the index of a face. And so to differentiate these from, let's say, the Miller indices, we would use the square brackets instead of the round brackets. So that would be a zone or indicating a particular direction within a crystal.